Hey there, so let's briefly talk about the aperture. In every camera, there is a symbol like A. When it is aligned to this dot, it sets the camera in aperture mode. Now, what does aperture really mean? Cutting all the things aside, aperture really relates to how wide or how narrow your camera lens is open, and depending upon the narrowness or the wide opening of the camera, the aperture is about how much of light actually gets into the camera, right? And that eventually defines your depth of field. So in photography, you are going to come across these terminologies called, and probably it will start with depth of field, and then it will try to uh, explain aperture, and then explain what does aperture actually mean. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to see the functioning of aperture in the live mode, right? And the way to look at aperture is on the camera, it is usually given by this point called f-stop. So f-stop can vary from depending upon the camera model. For this camera, this is Nikon uh, 5500D, and depending upon the camera and the lens, your aperture number can vary, your f-stop number can vary from 1.8 to f16, and there can be more as well. I'm using a 50 mm prime lens, so as per the capability of this lens, the aperture can go as low as 1.8. Now, what does a low aperture and high aperture number mean? Low aperture number relates to the lower the number, the wider the camera lens is open, and the higher the number, which is f16 in this camera, the narrower the lens opening is. So if the lens is open wide, it will allow more light, it will add a greater depth of field, or sorry, it will add a lower depth of field to the photography. If the f-stop is higher, for example f16 here, it will add to a higher depth of field. Higher depth of field means you can see things in the background very clearly in compared to the main object. The main object here in this case is a phone stand that I'm using here. There's a particular reason I picked up this, but what we're going to see is the live action of aperture. So right now I've kept it at f16. If I click the camera button, you can clearly see the objects in the background. You can see the bag there, you can see the plant there, and it's clearly visible. It's slightly blurred, but it is visible to a good extent. Now let's go to the other extreme. We go to f1.8. Now what will happen? As we discussed, I'm sorry, the low aperture number or low f-stop number means lower depth of field, which leads to a high amount of light entering into the camera. So if I press the button here, you can see the main object here, and all the background is blurred right now. And just look at these previews. This was at f16, this is at f1.8, and in all the range in between, you're going to see different depths of fields. For example, let me change the f-stop to f4, which means that I have narrowed down the camera lens a bit. It will add to a slightly higher depth of field, and you will be able to see the background to a good extent. As you can see, compared to the previous picture, which was taken on f1.8, there was no depth of field. Everything was blurred. In f4, there is a higher depth of field, and if you go to f16, you can clearly see the object. So this is what the aperture does, and it also relates to the other factors called ISO and the shutter speed, which we are going to discuss in one of the next videos. But I hope this is useful, and you will be seeing this more in the future. Have a good day. Bye bye.